Yo, what's going on, everyone? Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and today we're checking out 1943 for the NES.
Actually, Bri, that's 1943, the Battle of Midway.
I stand corrected.
And you know what that means in Japan?
Nobody cares. They were the enemies.
Known as 1943. Ichikyu Yonsan Midway Kaiser. Ow! Gonna hit me every time, aren't you?
Goddamn right.
Yep, worth it. Anyway, this was originally released to the arcades in 1987. It was developed and published by Capcom, and it came out on a ton of different collections.
Don't you do it.
Oh, I'm doing it.
Don't you fucking do it.
I have my bits, let me have my bits.
I'll cut it.
Including the NES, the PC Engine, collections for the Xbox, PlayStation, PlayStation 2, Sega Saturn, the PSP, and the Xbone. Today, we're looking at the NES version. It's to follow up to 1942. It improved on the game formula in a lot of ways. Let's take a look.
I hate you. So if you've been following us for at least the past month, then you know, Jim and I, we think most Capcom games look pretty damn good. And while this game doesn't exactly look bad, there's just not a lot here. Most of your screen is the ocean, or, you know, some big-ass ship, or some landmass. So it's really monochromatic.
Right, you forgot all the pretty clouds.
Yes, and the pretty clouds, god damn it.
Yay!
It strengthens my point, that's why I won't smack them. But either way, there's not a lot of coloring going on here, and it can get really repetitive. Your enemy types, luckily, do vary, but after a while, even those start to repeat. We do appreciate the effects of when you get your big power-up, like this lightning bomb, or whatever the hell you want to call it. And we will give kudos to some of the animated aerial acrobatics you'll see in this, like all the planes going upside down, and you can actually pull that off too. So this game, they did put some effort for a vertical scrolling shooter that is based on the Battle of Midway, so we couldn't have expected much. But even with that being said, I gave it a 5, Jim gave it a 4. I was a little bit more forgiving of this, but then again, that's because I love my country and I love America. And Jim doesn't. Hey! And when it comes to beer, I'm just going to give 1, because in all seriousness, I feel like this game could have pulled off something a little bit more impressive.
Alright, the sound. I'll start with the sound effects because this is kind of the weak point of the game. You are going to hear certain sound effects a lot. Mainly your shooting and mainly your special attack. Outside of that, there's not that much going on. But the music's definitely the bright point of this game though. There is a different track for every level of the game, there's a good boss theme, and just all the jingles in general are pretty good. Including this one theme that sounds oddly familiar, like a certain shark movie. A certain shark movie starred Richard Dreyfuss? Huh? When you get low on all your power? Huh? Might be a little familiar? Huh?
Ah! What? It's fucking Jaws!
I was talking about The Shallows.
Jim, you only watch The Shallows for one goddamn reason.
The gripping storyline? The thrills?
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly wasn't for the boobs with the sound off. No sirree, Bob. Anyway, the music's good, the sound effects are kind of meh, so we gave it 6s. And when it comes to beers, I'll just add 1 beer for, let's face it, the Jaws ripoff theme does get annoying pretty quick.
The control. In my opinion, this is the best part of this entire game, and one of the reasons people love this and 1942 so much. Using one of the simplest and time-honored control schemes that you can for a vertical shooter, you have the fire button, and you have your special attack / other button that can allow you to do this loop, which allows you to avoid getting shot at. And you know what? There's no lag. I had no issue with it. The movement, you can use your D-pad to move all around, so you're just constricted to the field of the actual game, but it never feels sluggish, and I don't have really any problems with it. The only thing I will say that kind of can hold this back is it's reminiscent of most earlier games, and that is when you hit the fire button, you have to keep hitting it, and in a game like this, you are going to wear your goddamn thumb out. Now, if you have a turbo button, or you're emulating, or whatever you're doing, then guess what? It's going to be a lot easier, and you'll love this game even more. But keeping it purely with the original controller, and for the wear out that day on our thumbs, we both had to give it a 9. And when it comes to beers, I'll only add 1. Something to cool down that callus on your thumb.
So the gameplay. Yeah, it's a vertical shooter. You know, it does the normal shooty stuff. You shoot stuff and then you move on. But honestly, this game improved a lot of ways over 1942. The biggest one, especially on the NES, is the fact that you have this cool customization where you can add to your special powers or your fuel or your, machine gun power, stuff like that. It's a very cool, way to make the game feel like your own and to give you different gameplay experiences. Besides that, you actually have a nice little strategy element between having a more powerful shot and more energy, or going for the spread shot, which would enable you to actually shoot down enemy bullets. So there's a nice give and take there, and trying to find out which kind of player you'd like to be more. So it's not the hardest game in the world, but there is definite, pattern memorization that you have to do like any vertical shooter. And you also have the fact that you don't per se have a life bar, but you have a fuel gauge that continuously goes down. So you have to make sure that you keep that stock while trying to dodge all the enemies, while trying to shoot everything down and beat bosses. There's a real kind of frenetic pace to the game that you really just can't ever sit back and rest on your laurels. You got to be on top of your game at all times. Overall, it's...
What? Did you really just say rest on your laurels?
Yes, I did.
What are you, a goddamn Nance again?
A Nance? I thought you were going to say an old man or some shit like that. Wasn't expecting a Nance.
No, you're a Nance again.
Sorry, bro. Trying to increase my vocabulary here.
Well, go ahead, Nance.
Anyway, with all that being said, we gave it 8s. And if I had to give it a beer, I don't know. Maybe I'll just give it 1 beer for resting on its laurels.
For you being a Nance.
No!
Well, the curse of the sequels continues when it pertains to the originality of a game. And like Jim said, there actually still managed to be some things this game offered new. The customization, the fact that it was just a faster paced game, and the ability to actually transfer some of that fuel when you're in 2-player mode. These were all neat features, but nothing groundbreaking. We'd seen enough from other vertical shooters, so it didn't really feel like a new experience, and let's face it, from 1942 and 1943, it's not exactly, you're not going to be wowed by a new story. You just fly up and shoot shit. So, we had to be fair. We could only give this game 4s. When it comes to beer, I'm not even going to add one, because honestly, when you're doing a game based on another World War II air battle, how much do you really think you could have expanded in a series like this? Well, Jim, how much?
I don't know, probably like somewhat.
Shut the fuck up!
The replayability. I can keep this one short. It's not like there's multiple endings to the game, and it'll probably take you a little while to get through it. So normally that would be a lower score, but hey, it's got 2-player, so you know what? We're gonna give it 5s. And when it comes to beer, I'll just add 1 happy beer for giving us a 2-player option. Why the hell not?
So overall, this is a game that actually scored really well for us. From how well and simple it controls, to just a stupid, mindless, fun gameplay with enough elements of customization to not feel overly repetitive. There's a lot to like here. Some people we know may prefer 1942 over this title, but just like we said last time, you just have to take off your nostalgia goggles and accept that this is a better game. And when it comes to scores, we both gave it a 7. It's well above average, and it is a Capcom classic. As I said before, yeah, it's not going to roll you in with a great story, but if you want a simple yet challenging NES classic, this is a perfect title. When we combine all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 7.2. So, yeah, go pick it up if you can find it. I'd probably say limit your budget to 10 to 15 at the very, very most, and that's not even looking at pricing right now, because this is a fun one. When it comes to beer pairing, I have to go with the Lagunitas Brewing Company Wilco Tango Foxtrot. This is an American brown ale coming in at 7.85%, so it's got a big punch to it, but you know what? It's got a ton of flavor. I'm going to suggest getting the bomber size for this to complement this game. I think you could pull off at least 1 or 2 bottles of this while playing through this game and have yourself a really good night. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly. As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.